Sharkie Gamer here. So today we're taking a look at the Gamester Pro Racer controller for GameCube. Now this is the purple version. You can also get this controller in black, but the black version is considerably harder to find. So taking a closer look at the features, first up you got a decent length of cable on this, should be more than enough to go to your console, and on the end is a GameCube connection. Now this controller is pretty small and compact. Moving into the features of it, first up you've got your left analog stick, which feels quite nice. It moves very smoothly. Then you've got a D-pad just here. Now the D-pad is one of those more firmer D-pads. You've got to press down a little bit harder to actually trigger the commands. Moving here, you've got your right analog stick. And up here, you've got your function buttons. You've got A, B, X, and Y. And these buttons feel quite nice and are pretty responsive. Moving down over the side, you've got a Z button. And I don't even know if you can see, it says Z on the top of it there. But the blue button actually blends in with the purple. And my camera's not actually doing justice to this purple color of this controller. It's coming out more bluish. But it is actually a purple controller. So that's the Z button. In the center there you've got the Gamester logo. And over the side you've got a start and pause button. Now moving up to the top of the controller here, you've got these two buttons on the end. So you've got one here and one here. And now this is a racing controller, like I mentioned. It's called the Pro Racer. And these buttons are basically your accelerate and brake. So basically they are replicating foot pedals on your standard kind of steering wheel. And these feel quite nice. They got quite a nice response to them. And you can see there that they actually move quite smoothly in. So they're ideally suited for like accelerate brake functions. Now you may be looking at this and think, okay, that's accelerate and brake, but where is the actual steering function of the controller? Well, you see it's actually built into these handles. So you've got these two handles on either side. When you're holding it, you'd be holding it something like this. And then when you want to race, you just turn here. And that will steer your car. So basically that sliding action is your steering wheel. So you can imagine this thing is a lot more compact than, say, a full-sized wheel. And it allows you to steer while you're playing. So this thing is ideal suited if you didn't have space for a full-size wheel. You said, oh, a full-size wheel's too big, but I don't like playing racing games with a gamepad. Then something like this meshes a gamepad and steering wheel into one, but still keeps it nice and compact, so it doesn't take up as much space. And another good feature of this thing is, say you're playing a racing game, and you think, no, now I want to go play a different game, I just want to use a gamepad. But when I'm playing like this with the gamepad, just using the gamepad features, I keep accidentally bumping this and it moves. You know, it just moves that little bit that gets on my nerves. Well, that's where this locking mechanism comes here. There's this little dial here, and if you lock it all the way over there, it actually locks that wheel so it doesn't move. So you can see now it doesn't actually slide anymore. You unlock it, that slides. So this is just done this way, so that you can actually lock it, and just use it as a standard gamepad. You can reach all the functions, and just play your normal game as you would do if you were holding a standard GameCube gamepad. Then if you want to go back to racing, you can just unlock it, and then straight away go back to playing a racing game. So it's a pretty cool idea, and it does have a lot of space-saving feature, being it's so small and compact. And when I mean this thing is small, like I said, it is pretty small. You can see when I hold it, it's pretty much comparable to the size of a gamepad, maybe just a bit wider. The things that let it down a little bit, the steering itself, I find in comparing it to, for instance, the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 1 Pro Racer controllers, this one, the steering seems to be a bit more firmer. It seems you have to press it a little bit more harder to steer, while the PlayStation 2 version for some reason seemed to be a bit smoother and a bit easier to turn. But that also could come down to the fact of these grips here. So it looks like a wheel, and the way you're meant to hold it is you're holding it in sort of that area, so your hands like this. But because it's curved, your natural instinct is to actually put your hands through that and hold it just like you would do a wheel. But this area here is pretty tight, so you can't quite do that. So you end up doing something like this, where your hands are sort of just behind or just inside there and trying to turn it. So this thing being a bit more firmer could be the fact that there's just not enough grip on the side, and you might not be getting a firm enough grip to actually move it properly. So that just comes down to they've tried to keep it compact, I guess, to sort of match the kind of GameCube styling, where if they just made this circular bit just a little bit wider, it might have been a little bit easier and more comfortable to hold, and eventually ended up making it a little bit more easier to steer. But it's not a major down point. It's something that could have been improved upon, but this thing still works pretty well. It does take a little bit to get used to, but other than that, I mean, it works pretty well, and it is an easy way and very compact way to play your GameCube racing games without having a huge full-size wheel. Because there's not actually many full-size wheels that are actually really good on GameCube. So this way, this keeps it portable, and you don't have to waste worrying or wasting time basically trying to find a decent full-size wheel for GameCube where you don't have the space anyway. So it's quite a good idea. It's quite interesting looking, and I mean, it is pretty well designed. There could have been some improvements, like I mentioned before, the size of the wheel, and perhaps its degree of hardness to actually turn that. But I think what's a really good idea, which the other Pro Racer controllers didn't have, is this locking mechanism. And I like how they built like a standard gamepad into the controller, so you can actually use it for a wheel, and then you lock that, and then use it as a gamepad and just play your normal games. This way you can have one controller plugged in, and not have to constantly swap between controllers. So I think that's a pretty cool feature they included. Now, like I mentioned at the start of this review, this version is the purple version, but there is also a black version. Now, the black version is very hard to find. You very, very rarely see it. It's just a really rare version of it. The purple version is a lot more common, but having said that, it's still hard to find. You don't see these very often. They tend to become a little bit of a rarity. Every now and again you'll see one pop up, but they are not that common at all. So that's why I have a purple one, because when I initially looked for it, I found the purple ones were the ones that are coming up, not the black one. The black one is pretty much identical, just the color here is black. So all the buttons are the same colors, everything like that. It's just controller itself that's black. But like I said, the black one is a lot harder to find. Perhaps they didn't make as much of the black one as they did the purple. Maybe they just thought the purple would be a more in-demand color for the GameCube, since there's a lot of purple GameCubes out there. But overall, yeah, pretty cool controller. And a very good idea. And the thing I like about it, another thing I like about it, is the fact that they made it a bit different from the PlayStation version. So say if you bought the PlayStation version, you're using the PlayStation version for PlayStation 2, and you bought this for GameCube, it is different. It's not the exact same controller, just repurposed for GameCube. They've actually redesigned it differently, especially for GameCube, which shows they put a little bit of thought into it. Although they could have improved it by widening those grips just a little bit. So guys, that was the Gamester Pro Racer controller for GameCube. It's a pretty cool controller, and like I said, pretty hard to find as well. So definitely one for GameCube collectors. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. I am Sharkie Gamer. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll have heaps more gaming controller and accessory videos up very shortly. Feel free to leave a comment down below if you'd like to, and if you like this video, hit that like button. Really helps out a lot, guys. Thanks for watching.